In the areas of AI, there's language, computer vision, audio, and behavior learning. These are some of the major. Should make this bigger, right? Let's see how to do it. I don't know how you do full screen on this. And then there are also like more domain specific realms like biology. So let's see. For visual tasks, there's object detection, image segmentation. Image segmentation is based on regression models, and object detection is based on classification models. These are both examples of non-generative AI. Image generation would be an example of generative AI. And then there's also VLMs, vision language models, which account for both vision and language, so it's cross-domain. Another area of application also for vision is video enhancement. A lot of the algorithms, if you are interested in vision, actually come from OpenCV, which predates the AI hype. If we're going to do a vision-related project, I do think it's important for learn OpenCV. It has more deterministic algorithms for image analysis, such as convolutional kernels for edge detection or blur or other properties. For example, this is a Sobel operator, and this is determined, right? And what machine learning or deep learning models do is, instead of having, it's maybe not the best visual, but let's see. So like, you see a matrix here in the corner. That's the Sobel operator. And so in OpenCV, like, operators are predefined. So if you want to detect edges or if you want to detect a particular property, right? But in CNNs, when you train the model, the values in this matrix are learned. So next one. There are different types of neural architectures, convolutional neural nets, diffusion models are different. So for CNNs, like common ones are known like VGG or, I'm forgetting the names of other, or ResNet, but they all have a similar structure. So they all have convolutional layers, pooling layers, and fully connected layers. So generally these three types of layers. So the math you want to know is how a convolution function works, how pooling works, which is a pretty easy math function, and what happens in a fully connected layer. So with those three, you can map out the neural architecture. Say this one is like mostly on visual, right? So if you are going to train a classifier or any image-based model using PyTorch, you'll need your data set to be in this structure. So this is the directory structure where you have a training directory and a validation directory. And within each directory, you have the classes. So like you would have images of Earth and images of the moon, or you could have as many classes as you want. If you want to, you could either use like already pre-curated data sets that are online, but most likely, if you have a specific use case, you may not have a data set that's just available for you. So there's a Bing image downloader library. It's really good for image scraping. It can, per query, it gets about 200 relevant images. And then when it keeps downloading more images, but those are usually not very relevant. So you want to think about your, like, what's the data size you want. Then you're going to need to, in order to train the model, you're going to need to pre-process images. And normally there are two requirements for the PyTorch setup. So this is slightly different. Like if you use scikit-learn to make a model, which you can to make small models, the pre-processing can be slightly different. But resizing all images so they're the same size, and then changing type to tensor. So the resizing is important for the not for the convolutional layers, but for the fully connected layers, and also for the pooling layers. The convolutional layers don't care what size the image is. The kernel just slides across the image. Okay, so I already went over, these are the main layers. This is an example. So if you wanted to visualize your neural net, you can use GraphViz. So this is an example of like what a neural net would look like. Many neural nets are much bigger than this, but this is like one flow of information. And I think what helps is to just ask yourself, like, start working on it and then start asking yourself questions about what's what. Here's another one. So this one like has, this is an even smaller one because I was working out how the picture relates to the code. So in red is just my code. So it's got 3 convolutional layers, 1 pooling layer, and then fully connected layers, and a dropout layer for regularization. So the flow is generally like this for most of the textbook models for vision classification. First there's convolution and then pooling, and then more convolution and more pooling, and the fully connected layers are usually at the end. So let's see. Okay, these are like typical sizes of image data sets that are out there. So pretty large, 100,000 images. The COCO dataset has 80 classes labeled already. So this is where you start running into like, you have to do specific work if you're going to do vision, because the object you're trying to detect may not be one of those 80 objects. The ImageNet dataset has 1,000 classes. And these ones, I'm like, they're not labeled in the same way. Like it's not just an object, but it has like a description. And some of the VLMs are trained on a text description and an image that goes with it. This is just an exercise that I've written out here, and this is like on our Discord. So I'm not going to go through like the detail of it, but it's basically mapping out like how much memory requirement you would need. So based on your machine, if you're going to need to chunk your data, and so you want to know your model size and your data size to figure out like how you want to chunk it. So you only want to load part of your data and train the model and then load the next part, because you don't want to load all of it if you have a large data rate. Okay, so this just like walks you through. I sort of broke down the code a little bit to share like what libraries you need to import. So this is all PyTorch, and if anyone's getting started, you can use any of their examples, or you can also, like, LLMs will write this kind of code for you, so you can start there. After importing, you want to configure like which device you're using. If you're using Apple Silicon, or if you're using an NVIDIA GPU, or if you're just using your CPU. And then you want to set your hyperparameters, which include the batch size, which you previously calculated, and also like some of the parameters related to how you're going to do the training. Does anyone have any questions or comments? I don't know everyone's backgrounds, so just like jump in. So after you define your hyperparameters, you would then define your neural architecture, which is defining how many layers you want and what kind of regularization you want, right? Okay, so then you would load your data set, you would do any pre-processing, and then you would run the training loop. So again, this code is on our Discord, and it's also easy to just find on the internet. And then the last thing is you would save the model. So this actually thought was kind of interesting, because the first time I saved the model, I used the Python pickle function. And when I tried to reload it, if it's not the same Python environment, like if you go from Python 3.9 to 3.10, it doesn't necessarily work. So if you're sure that you're loading, if you have the same Python environment, you can use pickle. But otherwise, you might want to use some other way of deserializing, like serialize and deserialize is what you're doing when you save, right? So you may want to use something else. So PyTorch has torch script, but if you have like scikit-learn model, I think you may want to just write deserialization. Okay, so well, I was training a model locally on my machine, so the CPU temperature really increased, and so I added a sleep step and then let it run longer. That was my solution to it. One of the things that's been on my mind is to like be able to train either locally or with small compute, like not have to pay tons and tons of compute processing. Yeah, so that's where this discussion is. So like again, like ask questions. Two other things that I'm maybe working on right now are I'm digging through the research paper on CLIP, which is the vision language model, and a diffusion research paper.
What's the model? What's the goal of your model? So you're training a model for what purpose?
So for this one, I was training a model just to have a binary classifier. So say if I wanted it to predict if it's an apple or not apple.
It's like
So I wanted it to be the smallest possible model, but for a binary classifier.
yeah. Sorry, I'm just thinking about the joke from the Silicon Valley, the TV. It's a dog and not hot dog and not hot dog thing. You know that, right?
I don't know it.
Oh, it's a funny clip. You can see on the internet.